Gold and the dollar, the global financial battle. Will China end the US empire? In the world of modern finance, we're witnessing an unprecedented shift. Traditional financial superpowers like the United States are facing a threat unlike any other, not from weapons or armies, but from something far stronger: the global financial system. And now, China, a country that is rapidly rising on the world economic map, has a bold strategy to replace the US dollar, a currency that has dominated the globe for decades. That strategy? Gold. Gold, the shiny metal we all know from sparkling jewelry or precious bars sitting in banks, is no longer just a physical asset. It's turning into a financial weapon, and China is ready to wield it to potentially replace the mighty US dollar in international trade. China, with its long-term master plan, is setting the stage for a financial revolution where the Chinese yuan could replace the US dollar's spot. And all of it will be backed and supported by, you guessed it, gold.so. What exactly is China doing, and why is this move so important? Is this the end of the US financial empire, or just a much-needed innovation in a world that's changing rapidly? Let's dive into this big story and start uncovering what's really going on.
Welcome to the Cloud News, your destination for dynamic perspectives on economics, technology, and financial investment. From market fluctuations to intriguing social trends, we bring the world to you through in-depth analyses. It's not just news, but a lens to help you understand the world that is shaping today.
China has already taken action, and no one could have predicted that this nation would lead the charge in the global gold revolution. The story begins a few years ago when the People's Bank of China, China's central bank, started buying gold on an unprecedented scale. While other countries merely held gold as part of their national reserves, China has been aggressively accumulating gold in a completely different way. This isn't just about buying gold as a way to safeguard assets. This is an ambitious strategy to create a new financial system where gold becomes the primary payment tool and collateral in international transactions. China has not only bought gold, but has also built a global infrastructure to work with it, including developing the Shanghai Gold Exchange, which is becoming a new financial hub of the world. But it doesn't stop there. China has also set up a gold corridor, a network of international gold reserves, which allows countries around the world, particularly developing nations, to use gold as collateral to borrow money. This isn't just a theoretical system, but a real infrastructure. A meticulously prepared method of doing business that could replace the US dollar, and it's China who has brought gold back to the center of the global financial game. They're not just hoarding gold to protect their economy, they're positioning themselves to dominate the global financial system in the future. Gold's recent inclusion as a Tier 1 asset under Basel III regulations is a huge milestone. This means that banks can now count 100% of the value of their gold on their balance sheets, the same as US Treasury bonds. Now, gold is no longer just a store of value, it's become an asset that can be borrowed against, traded, and used to finance economies. But a key question remains: why is China acting so decisively? Why are they so determined to overthrow the dollar, a currency that, until now, has been the world's primary reserve asset? The answer lies in trust. For a long time, the US dollar was seen as the safest asset in the world. Countries trusted it, held it as part of their reserves, and built their economies around it. But things began to change in 2022 when the US decided to freeze $300 billion of Russia's foreign reserves during the Ukraine crisis. That action sent a clear message to other countries: if you hold your reserves in US dollars, you don't truly own them. The dollar can be seized. It can be frozen with a click of a button. And from there, the loss of trust in the US dollar began to spread. Central banks in emerging markets, who were already looking to reduce their reliance on the dollar, began buying gold at an unprecedented rate. China, at the forefront of this trend, has been stockpiling gold like never before. But this shift isn't just about investing in gold. China is building a completely new financial system where the Chinese yuan could eventually replace the US dollar. To do this, they aren't just buying gold. They're using gold as a liquid asset, helping to finance other countries, especially developing ones. They're offering these countries a way to bypass the US dollar in international trade and finance. So, what does all this mean for you? For investors worldwide, what's at stake here? If China successfully turns gold into a high-quality liquid asset, could the US dollar lose its position as the leading currency in the global economy? Could gold really replace the dollar and become the dominant asset in international markets? The answer isn't simple, but one thing is clear: we're on the verge of a global financial revolution that few people can predict the outcome of. Gold is no longer just a store of value. It has become a powerful financial instrument that could shift the entire landscape of global finance. China isn't just trying to change how international trade works, they're trying to build a financial system that they can control. One that isn't at the mercy of the US or Western countries. With the rise of technology and new financial initiatives, China is creating a financial revolution that could very well change how we think about currency in the future. The global financial system is changing, and China is poised to lead the charge. As China moves further in its financial strategy, they aren't just stockpiling gold. They're also building a new global financial system, one that they can control. These aren't rash or random moves. They're well-calculated strategies designed to create a world financial system that no longer depends on the US dollar. China is gradually reaching unprecedented heights with their rapidly growing gold reserves. China is making the world rethink gold's value. Previously, gold was seen as a store of value during unstable times, but China has turned it into a powerful financial tool that could replace the US dollar in global transactions. They're not just buying gold. They're building a global financial infrastructure where gold plays a leading role. Building a global gold empire. China isn't just stockpiling gold for itself. They've expanded their influence by building gold trading platforms, with the Shanghai Gold Exchange being the most prominent. This isn't just your regular gold exchange. It's becoming a global financial center where gold can be traded in large quantities, supported by advanced payment systems. Has become the world's largest physical gold hub, and China is building a network of international gold reserves to connect countries and allow them to use gold as a payment tool and collateral. This isn't a theoretical system. It's already up and running. One prime example is the gold corridor China has set up. It's a network of gold reserves and exchanges connected to each other, allowing other countries to use gold as collateral in international financial transactions. Developing countries, especially those rich in natural resources like Africa and South America, can now use their gold to borrow money from China. Building infrastructure and developing their economies, China isn't just a player in the global financial game, they're setting the rules. By building independent financial structures, China is creating a parallel financial path that runs alongside the system led by the US and Western countries. While other nations may still be cautious, China is already leaps ahead in building a system that they can fully control. The shift of gold and the dollar. One of the most important changes in China's strategy is the official recognition of gold as a Tier 1 asset under Basel III standards. Previously, gold was considered a Tier 3 asset, and banks couldn't use it flexibly in financial transactions. But now, gold has been elevated to a whole new level, on par with cash and US Treasury bonds. This means banks can count 100% of the value of gold on their balance sheets, and it can be used as collateral in financial transactions if gold even becomes a high-quality liquid asset. This could open entirely new possibilities for countries. Are assets that are highly valuable and liquid, and they can be used as collateral in financial transactions. Right now, these assets are primarily US Treasury bonds. However, if gold becomes countries won't need to rely on the US dollar to finance their economies. Instead, they could use gold as a financial tool to develop and build infrastructure projects like airports, highways, and power plants. This could completely change the global financial landscape. That's why China is leading the way in creating a financial system that doesn't just replace the dollar but also gives control back to developing countries. These nations won't have to rely on loans from the IMF or other Western institutions. Instead, they can use gold as collateral and borrow money from Chinese banks to develop their economies. A story of trust and financial power. An essential element in this strategy is trust. For decades, the US dollar was considered the safest asset in the world. But when the US froze Russia's assets in 2022, it sent a clear message to other countries: if you hold US dollars, you can't fully trust that they'll always be yours. Countries began realizing that the dollar wasn't a fixed asset, and they started looking for alternatives. China, recognizing this, has built a financial strategy that doesn't rely on the US dollar. Instead, they put their trust in gold, an asset that can't be manipulated or frozen like the dollar. With their gold corridor strategy, China is creating a financial system where countries can use gold as collateral without worrying about Western interference. But this isn't just about gold or currency. This is a game of global financial power. China doesn't just want to replace the US dollar. They want to change how the global financial system works. In this system, gold will be a key asset, and China will be the one controlling the entire new financial world. So, China isn't just playing the global financial game, they're changing the rules. When gold becomes a high-quality liquid asset, when countries can borrow using gold instead of the dollar, when all international transactions can happen without the involvement of the US, all of these things could lead to a completely new financial world. One where China holds the dominant position. Now, the question is, can the US dollar hold its ground in a new financial world, where gold becomes king and China leads the way? This isn't just a question about economics, it's about power, trust, and the inevitable shift in the global financial landscape. As China sets up financial platforms and strengthens its position in the gold market, they're not just building a system to replace the US dollar. They're laying out a new roadmap for the global financial system, a system that few could have predicted the magnitude of changes it will bring. But the crucial thing is, in the process, China isn't just replacing the dollar, they're creating a completely new financial system. One independent of us and Western financial policies, a global vision, and the rise of non-Western nations. What China is doing is really creating a new financial system. One where countries no longer need to rely on Western financial institutions like the International Monetary Fund (IMF) or the World Bank (WB) to grow. Instead of adhering to the strict regulations and conditions imposed by the West, countries will be able to rely on gold, a tangible asset that can't be manipulated, to build infrastructure, develop economies, and conduct international trade without needing US dollars. This shift doesn't just change how the global financial system operates. It also changes how emerging nations can now participate in the global economy. China, with its growing network of gold trading platforms and gold corridor, is making it easier for countries with limited financial reserves to access capital. This opens up a tremendous opportunity for developing nations, especially in regions like Africa, South America, and Asia, where there are abundant natural resources but limited financial infrastructure. China and the breakthrough in global finance. Most significant shift in China's strategy isn't just in stockpiling gold, it's in how they plan to use gold as a strategic financial tool to replace the US dollar. As China continues to dominate the global gold market, they're also changing the rules of international trade. Before, nations that wanted to participate in international transactions primarily relied on the US dollar. But now, if countries want to trade or finance infrastructure projects, they can use gold as collateral. This is going to create an entirely different financial world, where countries won't be dependent on a Western-dominated financial system anymore. China is building a new path, not just for itself, but for other countries, so they can break free from the US dollar and enter a new global financial system where gold is the dominant asset. Hold on to your seats. Can the dollar hold its ground against China? By now, you might be asking, can the US dollar, with its financial power and position in the global financial system, really stand up against China's rise and their gold strategy? Will Western countries continue to maintain control of global finance, or will they be defeated by a new financial strategy built on gold and tangible assets? To answer that, we need to look at the fundamentals of the global financial system. First, the US dollar still holds the position as the primary reserve currency in international transactions. However, China's rapid development and their gold strategy present a massive challenge to the dollar's dominance. China has already shown they can replace the dollar in international transactions, and that is raising serious concerns for Western nations. However, this doesn't mean the dollar will lose its position immediately. The dollar is still the primary currency in the global financial system, and nations still rely on it to maintain financial stability. But China is paving the way for an alternative, and if this strategy succeeds, we could see a major shift in how countries trade and finance their economies. The new financial world, an unpredictable outcome. So, here's the question: are we witnessing the beginning of a global financial revolution? Can gold really replace the US dollar, and can China become the leader in a new global financial system where gold and tangible assets take center stage? This is not just an economic story, it's a story about power, change, and the inevitable shift in the global financial landscape. With everything that's happening, we might be standing on the brink of a new financial era, where nations no longer rely on the dollar to maintain financial stability. China, with its gold strategy, is offering a never-before-seen opportunity for developing nations. While changing the way we think about currency and global finance, remember, the world of finance never stands still. Big changes are happening, and the countries that know how to seize this opportunity could control the future of the world's finances. China is making its move, and the question is, will we be able to keep up with their pace? In a changing world, the deep lesson China's strategy teaches us. So, in a world that's shifting like this, we need to think about the profound lesson China's strategy is teaching us. What they're doing isn't just a financial strategy, it's a revolution. A revolution not just about gold, but about how we perceive and build the global financial system. China isn't just trying to replace the US dollar. They're creating a financial system where countries can trade and borrow without being dependent on Western policies. The lesson of financial power. What China is doing shows us that financial power isn't just about controlling currencies, it's about controlling real assets. Gold can't be manipulated, it can't be printed like paper money, and it has value that goes beyond the foundations of traditional financial systems. With gold, China is creating a type of asset that no one can counterfeit. And that's their strength. Countries that have long lived under the shadow of the dollar now have the chance to find financial freedom in using gold as collateral, a powerful tool for development. These countries no longer need to rely on Western currencies or financial decisions made in Washington or Brussels. China is offering them an opportunity to build their own economies without being bound by IMF or World Bank conditions. When we look at China's moves in this financial revolution, we can feel that a clear change is coming. However, this isn't the end, it's the beginning of a new journey. China has built a solid foundation to replace the US dollar, but can they succeed in completely changing the global financial order? That's still a big question, but one thing is certain, we are witnessing the biggest change in the global financial system in history. With what China is doing, gold will no longer be just a store of value in difficult times, it will become the center of the new financial system, where nations can trade, borrow, and fund development without needing to rely on the US dollar. The real lesson, financial power. Beyond the dollar, but even more important, is the lesson China is teaching us. Financial power doesn't just come from controlling currencies, it comes from owning real assets, assets that no one can create or manipulate. And when other countries recognize this, they will no longer rely on the Western financial system. Instead, they will look for ways to build an independent financial system where gold and other tangible assets play a far more important role. The future of finance is no longer just a Western story. That future is now being written by countries that know how to leverage real assets, like China is doing with gold. And we, as investors, as financial enthusiasts, need to stay on top of this change to avoid being left behind. Gold is no longer just a precious metal, it's a powerful financial tool that we need to understand more deeply. We're not just looking at a global financial change, but a revolution, a turning point that could change how we think about currency, assets, and power. If we don't understand this change, we could miss out on a huge opportunity to ride the next wave of financial trends. So, be ready. Don't let yourself be left out of this revolution. Let's keep following the developments closely, analyzing new financial trends, and understanding how China is changing the global financial system. Because, as we've seen, this change won't just affect large countries, it will affect all of us investors and those living in the modern financial world. Finally, remember, this financial journey is endless, and the opportunity is only for those who are ready to seize the biggest changes the world has ever seen. Get ready for the financial future you want to create.